What it do, ladies and gentlemen, it's Triple DS. Today we are going to be ranking all 32 quarterbacks from each team. Now, I understand that there's been more than one quarterback to play for several teams, so I'm going to have a few ground rules. It is one quarterback per team. The said quarterback must have started the majority of games for the team. Sorry, Brock Purdy. I am only counting the regular season, and I'm only counting what they did this year. What they did before in a previous season means nothing in this list. This is a purely statistical list. I have devised my list into 7 categories. The categories include pass yards, total touchdowns, completion percentage, QBR, passer rating, game-winning drives, and rushing yards. The higher ranked the quarterback is, the more points they get. For example, Patrick Mahomes' passing yards is number 1 in the league. He got 32 points. Whereas a guy like Zach Wilson, who didn't do so high in this list, probably got much lower. I'll be starting from the bottom and get all the way to the top. So sit back, relax, and if this is your first time on the channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. We're on the road to 1250 subs. With that out of the way, let's get into it. And as I said, we are starting with the bottom of the barrel tier. At number 32, Baker Mayfield with 14 points for the Carolina Panthers. Now, this was me being nice and generous because I was also including Baker Mayfield's time with the Rams here. Nonetheless, he still finishes at the bottom of this list. Baker Mayfield was ranked dead last in a lot of categories. He's ranked 32nd in completion percentage, as only 1 game-winning drive, as only 89 rushing yards, and only 2,100 yards passing. None of his categories are ranked any higher than 29th outside of game-winning drives, although a lot of people have only 1 game-winning drive. Number 31, Zach Wilson for the New York Jets at 29 points. Before I started this list, I thought Zach Wilson would be at the bottom tier, but you know what? Second to worst is not a good position either. Zach Wilson had one of the worst quarterback showings of all the NFL. It's incredible how much chance this guy was given and how arrogant he was with it. Among qualified quarterbacks, Zach Wilson's passer rating ranked 32nd. He had only 8 total touchdowns and had a putrid 1,688 yards passing. The only thing that kept him away from being at the bottom is that he actually has a little bit more rushing yards, and he has 2 game-winning drives as opposed to 1 game-winning drive. 29 points is still absolutely nothing, y'all. At number 30, we have Taylor Heinicke for the Washington Commanders with just over 1,859 yards, which has him 31st and only 13 touchdowns. What saves Heinicke from being even lower is his passer rating, which has him ranked at 19th place. Nonetheless, Heinicke was still Washington's best quarterback for the year, and that is not a good sign, ladies and gentlemen. At number 29, we have Matthew Stafford with 53 points. The Rams as a whole had the Super Bowl hangover of the century. Matthew Stafford specifically only had just over 2,000 yards, only 11 total touchdowns. That's terrible. And for a guy who has one of the best at game-winning drives, he had none to speak of this year. The only thing that helps Matthew Stafford rise above is his completion percentage, which has him 4th in the NFL. If it wasn't for that completion percentage, there's a good chance he might be lower on this list. At number 28, for the New England Patriots, it's Mac Jones with 57 points. Just edging out Matthew Stafford, Mac Jones had a lot more total touchdowns. Well, I wouldn't say a lot more. He had 15 total touchdowns and a 36.1 QBR, which is 30th ranked in the NFL. No game-winning drives to speak of, but he had a decent amount rushing with 102 rushing yards. At number 27, we have Davis Mills with 71 points for the Houston Texans. I'm personally a big Davis Mills fan. I feel like the Houston Texans had nothing in terms of talent on offense. Not that Pierce is a bad running back. It's just there's only so much you can do with one good target. And I'm aware that the Texans have Brandon Cook. I said what I said. His QBR and passer rating have him ranked 31st, but overall he is spared with a few more rushing yards at 108, which rank him 20th, and he's middle of the pack with his passing yards. At number 26, we have the Tennessee Titans' Ryan Tannehill with 71 points. This is a good place to tell you why I have these tiebreakers set how they are. Why is Ryan Tannehill above Davis Mills? When it comes to my point system, if there is a tie, I am going to go with a higher QBR. Davis Mills had 33.2, which ranked him 31st. Ryan Tannehill had a 49.2 QBR, which ranked him 24th. Hence, the edge went to Ryan Tannehill in the rankings. What really held Ryan Tannehill back was that he had 0 game-winning drives this year in the NFL. He could have been a lot higher had he just had 1 or 2, but here he is ranked at number 26. He had 15 total touchdowns, which isn't great, but his big up is his passing rating, which is 11th in the NFL. Okay, so that does it for the bottom of the barrel. We now move on to the mediocre / average. At number 25, we have Pittsburgh Steelers' Kenny Pickett with 76 points. Kenny Pickett had the least amount of touchdowns for the qualified 32 quarterbacks at just 10 total. He had the 32nd ranked passer rating among qualified quarterbacks. However, what really boosted Kenny Pickett up was his game-winning drives. He had 4 game-winning drives, which tied him for 5th place in the NFL. His 237 rushing yards helped him out just a bit as well. At 24, we have Matt Ryan for the Indianapolis Colts with 87 points. Probably best known this year as the guy who gave up the worst comeback in NFL history. This guy just cannot catch a break. Overall, his stats across the board are middle of the pack to below average at best. 17th ranked passing yards, 24th ranked total touchdowns. What elevates Matt Ryan though is his completion percentage, which is 67%, good enough for 8th place in the slot. It also doesn't hurt that he had 4 game-winning drives this year. Despite being mediocre at best, it seems like Matt Ryan's time with the Colts is going to end soon. At number 23 with 87 points, Andy Dalton with the New Orleans Saints. Again, he edges out Matt Ryan due to QBR. Dalton's is ranked 21st with 50.7, while Matt Ryan's was a 43.1, good enough for 26th place. Andy Dalton had a so-so year. You couldn't tell because the Saints as a whole were struggling mightily. A big boost for Dalton, similar to Matt Ryan, was his completion percentage, good enough for 10th. Overall, his numbers across the board are below average at best. 19th ranked passing yards. What elevates Andy Dalton over the likes of Kenny Pickett and Matt Ryan is the fact that his QBR is higher. He's ranked 10th in completion percentage, and he's tied for 9th in passer rating. Would you call it a resurgence? Yeah, I guess so. At number 22, we have the Denver Broncos' Russell Wilson with 89 points. Now, many people probably thought that Russell Wilson would have been much lower on this list. Keep in mind, y'all, he did have a bad year, but just remember, because of the greatness of Russell Wilson, we expected so much more. If you're going based off expectations, maybe he's lower, but statistically, he was the 22nd ranked quarterback in my list. Everything about Russell Wilson is average at best. He had 3,500 yards passing, he had 19 total touchdowns. He did have a terrible QBR of 37, but he had 3 game-winning drives and 277 rushing yards, which is good enough for 11th, respectively, for both categories.
Broncos country, let's ride.
At number 21, we have Kyler Murray for the Arizona Cardinals with 90 points. Kyler Murray is actually on a similar boat of Russell Wilson. The only difference is Kyler Murray did not finish his year. He finished 25th ranked in passing yards, 23rd total in total touchdowns, and only had 1 game-winning drive throughout the entire year. I'm sure Raiders fans remember it. What elevates Kyler Murray above Russell Wilson and Andy Dalton is his rushing yards. He's good enough for 7th in rushing with 418, so it's good enough for 21st on my list. At number 20, we have Justin Fields with the Chicago Bears with 100 points. All right, now we're getting into triple digits, ladies and gentlemen. Justin Fields, if you look at all his statistics, it's below average at best. You're ranked 26th in passing yards. You're ranked 31st in completion percentage. You're ranked 25th in passer rating. You only have 2 game-winning drives, so why are you this high, Justin Fields? As far as total touchdowns go, remember that's passing and rushing, Justin Fields is ranked tied for 11th, so that elevated him tremendously. The other thing that elevated him, he was ranked number 1 in rushing yards. So being number 1 in rushing yards gave him another 32 points, edging out the likes of Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, and Andy Dalton. At number 19, we have Jimmy Garoppolo of the San Francisco 49ers with 100 points. Again, the reason he edges out Justin Fields is QBR, and this was actually a close one. Jimmy G's 54.4 just barely edges out Justin Fields' 54.0. Where Jimmy G struggled in rushing and Justin Fields thrived, Jimmy G was much better in almost every other category. He was ranked 23rd in passing, he was tied for the 5th best completion percentage, and he had the 3rd best passer rating in the NFL. Jimmy G was actually doing pretty well before he got hurt. At number 18, another 100-point total. This goes to Jacoby Brissett of the Cleveland Browns. Again, the difference maker here was the QBR. He had a 59.9 QBR. Brissett had a pretty decent showing, one that could maybe land him a starting position in some other team's uniform, because the Browns have made up their mind on who they want at quarterback. Across the board, Jacoby Brissett was average at best at almost every category on my list, but it was good enough to give him 100 points, and he edges out the other 2 thanks to his QBR. At number 17, we have Derek Carr with 101 points, 1 point above the other 3. Derek Carr had a disappointing year to say the least, resulting in him possibly not being in a Raiders uniform anymore. Now, while some Raiders fans rejoice, I am one to say that Derek Carr has never really had a good chance. In this particular year, he still had 24 total touchdowns, he was ranked 13th in QBR, and despite becoming slightly older, he still managed over 100 yards rushing, and that's pretty good, okay? Do not let the likes of Justin Fields, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson fool you. Over 100 yards for some of these quarterbacks is a big deal. Nonetheless, Derek Carr did enough to be 17th in this slot. Here's to hoping he lands on a better team for next year. At number 16, we have a surprise in Marcus Mariota with 102 points. I told you guys this was going to be a controversial list, but the stats don't lie. Where he did struggle in the passing, he was ranked 28th in passing yards. He did have 3 game-winning drives, which elevated his stock, as well as his 6th ranked 438 rushing yards. It just barely squeaks by the last 5 entrants, but Marcus Mariota did get benched in the end. Who knows how much higher he could have gone or how much lower. Remember, his percentage in QBR and passer rating could have gone down too. Now we're past the average, now anything higher. We are now talking about fantastic seasons. And we start off, yes, a fantastic season for this guy, number 15, Aaron Rodgers. He's still ranked in my fantastic category. Do not be fooled, y'all. This is a former, I think, 3 or 4 time MVP at this point. Just him having a bad year is still ranked in the top half for quarterbacks in the NFL as far as my rankings are concerned. He still had 27 total touchdowns, 4 game-winning drives. He has the 15th ranked passer rating and just under 3,700 yards passing, which is good for 11th. Overall, what holds Aaron Rodgers back is his QBR, which is the worst of his career, 39.3. He also didn't do too much on the ground, but that's what you'd expect from a man approaching his 40s. At number 14, we have Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens with 119 points. Lamar Jackson had a very off year, to say the least. He started off as hot as any quarterback could get, but he cooled down, ultimately landing, I'd call it IR, because he never played again. If I were to be blunt, Lamar Jackson might be a little lower on this list had it not been for his rushing ability elevating him. Outside of Justin Fields, no one ran the ball more than Lamar with 764 rushing yards. And that's saying something, considering that Lamar missed the last 5 games of the season. Lamar Jackson may not play for the Ravens again, and as a Bengals fan, I could not be happier. Find something better outside of the AFC North, Lamar. Find someone that will actually pay you. At number 13, we have Dakota Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys with 123 points. Across the board, Dak Prescott's stats are pretty mediocre. He had 24 total touchdowns, good for 14th rank, 66 completion percentage, good enough for 14th, 57.9 QBR, good enough for 12th, 2 game-winning drives, and 182 rushing yards overall. Nothing really stands out, but nothing's absolutely terrible for Dak. At number 12, we have Tua Tagovailoa with 134 points. Everything looked absolutely wonderful for this guy. He actually has the number 1 passer rating in the NFL. He's ranked 3rd in QBR, and he's ranked 11th in total touchdowns with 25. What holds him back is that he had only 70 rushing yards. That's below the 32nd rank among quarterbacks, so he didn't get any points for that. The other thing that holds him back is his completion percentage, which is just good enough for 19th. Still, not bad for 12th place. At number 11, we have the GOAT Tom Brady of the Tampa Bay Bucks with 136 points. Just edging out Tua Tagovailoa. Brady, from a win percentage, had one of his worst years in the NFL. Yet, with a lot of his rankings here, he did not look terrible. Ranked 3rd in passing yards, ranked 10th in total touchdowns, ranked 9th in completion percentage. The only thing that really stood out is his rushing yards. He had a total of -1 rushing yards this year. I read that correctly. I double checked, I triple checked. He had -1 rushing yards. Part of me almost wanted to take points off, but you know what? I'm gonna leave it at 0. Nonetheless, it was still good for 136 points, good enough for the 11th slot. Alright, now we're getting into the top 10. This is still fantastic play. At number 10, we have Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings with 142 points. Captain Kirk is one of the best quarterbacks in the regular season if you don't include primetime. His passing yards were good enough to rank him 4th in the NFL. His total touchdowns, 5th in the NFL. His passer rating was ranked 13th, but the thing that stood out for Captain Kirk is his game-winning drives. Captain Kirk has 8, good enough for 1st in the NFL this year. No one had more game-winning drives, and it's not even close. We'll see what happens moving forward, but this elevated him to the top 10 in my list. Are you mad? Don't blame me, blame the statistics. At number 9, we have Jared Goff from the Detroit Lions with 142 points. Similar to other ties, the difference is the QBR. And Jared Goff knocked QBR out of the park. 61.1, good enough for 5th place in these rankings. If it weren't for the likes of Geno Smith, whom we haven't even got to yet, Jared Goff might have been my pick for comeback player of the year. No one expected this performance from the former bust of the Rams. Passing yards, total touchdowns, passer rating, and QBR all rank in the top 10 or better. What holds Jared Goff back is his rushing yards. He was ranked 33rd in quarterback rush yards with 73, so that gave him no points. Otherwise, he would have been higher on this list. At number 8, we have Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars with 151 points. Trevor Lawrence really came alive in the second half of the season. After a terrible game against the Lions, the Jaguars did not look back, and Trevor Lawrence proved why he was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. This was a great year 2, and I can only hope for much better things to come in year 3. He's ranked 10th or higher in pass yards, rush yards, passer rating, total touchdowns, with the only really problem is that he didn't have enough game-winning drives. He only had 2, still good enough to tie for 17th. At number 7, we have I can't believe he made it this high, but we have Daniel Jones of the New York Giants with 168 points. Remember, this is only for this year, ladies and gentlemen, but Daniel Jones really balled out. In 3 different categories, Daniel Jones ranks 5th place or better. Rushing yards, 5th. Completion percentage, tied for 5th. Game-winning drives, tied for 2nd with 5. No category in my list is Daniel Jones lower than 15th place. Do you guys think the Giants will re-sign Daniel Jones, or is this a reason to franchise him, then trade him? Let me know in the comments. At number 6, we have Justin Herbert of the LA Chargers with 173 points. Herbert was ranked 2nd in passing yards. He was ranked 11th in total touchdowns, ranked 3rd in completion percentage, ranked 11th in QBR, ranked 12th in passer rating, and had 5 game-winning drives, good for 2nd place tied. The only thing Justin Herbert could have done better is rushing yards. With 147 rushing yards, he ranked 17th. Without that, he's just outside the top 5. Now that we've gotten past the fantastic years, it is now time to talk about the best of the best. Some of these names, where they are, might shock you, but again, this is based off statistics, ladies and gentlemen. You guys can get mad all you want, but this is all based off the stats. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about number 5, and that is Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles with 177 points. Jalen Hurts had the breakout of all breakout years at quarterback. He is, as of my recording, taking the Eagles to the Super Bowl, and with good reason. Without Jalen Hurts, the Eagles actually struggled mightily. With Jalen Hurts, they look to be unstoppable. As far as rankings go, he is ranked 4th in QBR, passer rating, and rushing yards. The only thing that Jalen Hurts could have done better was more passing yards, but really, he's only in 10th place there. It doesn't hurt him too much, but again, hey, if he didn't have enough pass yards, well, durability is a key part of this as well. Obviously, if you play a little more, you get a few more passing yards. To go along with that, he also only had 2 game-winning drives, thus holding him back in just 5th place. At number 4, we have Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills with 181 points. Josh Allen had one of the best seasons that a quarterback could have. You could not ask for more. Ranking 2nd in total touchdowns, 2nd in QBR, 3rd in rushing, 8th in passer rating, 7th in passing yards, and had 4 game-winning drives, good for 5th tied. The biggest glare to Josh Allen's statistics in my categories is completion percentage. With just 63.3, that held him all the way down to 22nd. If it weren't for that, if he was maybe even in the top 10, he would have easily been in 2nd place on my list. Josh Allen's got to clean up some of those decisions, got to clean up some of those throws. Maybe he'll end up higher in my list if I do this again next year. All right, and at number 3, woohoo! If it wasn't controversial yet, it better be now. At number 3, from the Seattle Seahawks, we have Geno Smith with 187 points. Wowie. This is a great time for me to remind you guys how my system works. I take all 7 of the categories I've mentioned, and I rank the quarterbacks accordingly. If you're ranked first, you get 32 points. If you're ranked last or worse somehow, you get 0 points. Does that make sense? Geno Smith ranks no lower than 11th in any category. I'm going to break it down piece by piece, category by category. In passing yards, he's ranked 8th. Total touchdowns, he's ranked tied for 5th. Completion percentage, 1st place. QBR, 6th place. Passer rating, 5th place. Game-winning drives, tied for 11th place. Rushing yards, 8th place. I've been saying this, I even said this in the Geno Smith video that I made. If it wasn't for a bad defense, this team probably could have won like 12 games. Think I'm lying? The stats don't lie. Geno Smith deserves to be in 3rd place. And in second place, we have Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals with 188 points. Obviously, I have a bit of bias here, but I can't be biased with statistics. I can't be biased with numbers. Joe Burrow was ranked 5th in passing yards. He was ranked 3rd in total touchdowns, ranked 2nd in completion percentage, ranked 10th in QBR, ranked 6th in passer rating, had 4 game-winning drives, good for 5th place tied. The only thing that held Joe Burrow back was his rushing totals. Even if he would have came in first place, it probably wouldn't have mattered, because at number 1 with 205 points, the only quarterback to have more than 200 points in my list is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes ranks 1st in passing yards, 1st in total touchdowns, 1st in QBR, 2nd in passer rating, tied for 5th in game-winning drives at 4, 9th in rushing yards. This was one of the most dominant quarterback seasons that anyone has had, yet we have expected this from Patrick Mahomes year by year that now it doesn't even feel like it's real anymore. Patrick Mahomes had one of the best years statistically, and if you watch him on the field, you've seen his greatness. Even without Tyreek Hill, it did not matter. He found targets, he found options, and he made it work. And as of my recording, he is on his way to the Super Bowl. And as bitter as I am, I hope the Eagles win. So that's my list, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions, any comments, concerns, let me know down below. If this is your first time on the channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. There was a lot of work taken to make this video, and every like would mean the world to me, y'all. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you think I'm wrong, or if you really believe I messed up in one of this criteria, or if I should have added a category, or should have taken away a category, let me know in the comments. I love talking about football. If you disagree, let me know why. And as long as you keep it civil, I'll respond. It's been your boy Triple DS, and until next time.